The State Bank of Vietnam officially lowered the interest rate cap by 1% from March the 13th, 2012. There are mixed opinions on whether the decision timing is right or not, particularly in the context of high inflation. Our reporter had a conversation with Mr. Brett Krause, Managing Director of Citi Bank Vietnam, about the rate cut.
As you know, the State Bank of Vietnam has just officially announced the decision to cut the interest rate by 1%. So what do you think about this movement?
As inflation has come down, it's also expected that there would be some lowering of interest rates. I think that the move took some analysts by surprise because with inflation still relatively high at 16.5%, that might be a bit early. On the other hand, you don't want to overshoot. It's important to balance the trade-offs between bringing inflation down and still being able to stimulate growth. It's always difficult for any central banker to manage those trade-offs. I think that this is an anticipated move, and I think timing is not the most important issue. I think the more important issue is the longer-term trend in managing inflation. Fundamentally, I think that it's important for the State Bank to continue to keep interest rates relatively high until inflation comes down.
This cut on interest rate is expected to lower the lending interest rate in order to create favorable conditions for businesses. So do you think?
Certainly on the part of borrowers. Companies and others which are exposed to Vietnam Dong borrowing have been impacted in a very negative way by high interest rates. And the longer that continues, the more painful it is. Yeah, in principle, lowering official benchmarks can lead to lower interest rates. In general, yeah, I think you'll see the borrowing rates come down a bit. But still, if you look at, in any sense, Vietnam's borrowing rates are still high. They're still high relative to most other countries in the region because Vietnam's inflation remains high. The reduction is good, but there's still a lot of work to be done going forward.
So how does this movement impact on the operation of Citi Bank in Vietnam, because you are part of the banking system here?
Well, clearly we are working in the Vietnamese banking context, and so interest rates, like all of the banking policies, have a very direct impact on us and our clients. You could see concern in the past around Vietnam Dong borrowing rates being so high, and many companies with access to global capital considering that very, very big differential between the cost that they might have to pay to raise currency in commercial paper markets offshore or borrowing from a parent entity versus the cost of borrowing locally, which continue to be quite high in Vietnam Dong terms. So, and as long as borrowing rates are very high, I think everyone's going to be very careful about how much they borrow for investment. We can continue to see global multinationals have an interest in Vietnam, and how rapidly they build out will also be a product of where interest rates are and their view on the long-term macro stability.
Vietnam Journal. It's not just news, it's life in Vietnam.